welcome, or welcome back, or welcome, official welcome to the Rain from Within podcast. Welcome, y'all, to the first official episode. I had an episode before, but that was kind of to just give you guys an idea of how, the way God has spoken to me. A dream is what your heart makes. You know what I'm saying? Don't ignore those dreams. Go back and listen to it if you haven't. But welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the Rain from Within podcast, where my heart is to help you discover your voice, identify your purpose, and find your rain. And I'm just so excited to have you guys here and to talk to you guys a little bit more of what that means. But first things first, before we get into all the serious stuff, okay? I just wanted to chat with y'all for a second. So life has been so great. Y'all, let me tell you something. So I wanted to kind of have a little coffee with me, something to say. I have my water because guess what, y'all? It is currently 10 o'clock p.m. And frankly, I just feel okay, do you know how they say oh, are you a morning person? You're a night person. So I realized I'm a morning person. I'm an early riser and I love to get up early and I love to get moving early. But here's the thing. They also say you've got to be real with yourself, right? I am most productive in the morning and I'm most creative in the evening. So in the evening is when I get all of all these fresh ideas. I get all of this just good stuff happen, right? And then in the morning, I'm more of check off everything, to-do list. Midday, cannot be bothered. I cannot be bothered midday. Midday is where I'll clean up from the productivity. You know what I'm saying? If I'm at home, right? So in the morning is where I'll get all the things done. You know, I like to do my quiet time in the morning, start checking the to-do list, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. I'm thinking that wherever the wind may blow, honestly, as long as I am able to talk to y'all, that's what matters. So I'm not going to press myself about that. And that's a big thing of what I'm passionate about. Find what works for you and go for it, right? We'll learn that together. But I'm so excited to be on this journey with y'all and to really just dive in, right? So a couple of things, what can I tell y'all? I these past couple weeks, okay, can we talk about how fast the year is moving? However, the year's moving by kind of fast, right? We're already in March, okay? But here's my thing. It's also moving by really slow because I don't know about y'all, but January was forever long. Mad long. And I'm not mad at it. January was long for a reason. God was doing his thing in January, okay? January was amazing. January owes me nothing, okay? And then comes February. And February, all right, everyone's like, oh my gosh, February flew by. Well, duh, it's the shortest month of the year. Duh. And now we're in March. And I'm just so expectant. The thing is that I've been so happy to every month I've gone into so expectant and so ready for it and just really excited for what God has and what God is doing. So it's been great. And then so just unpacking that. So I don't know. There's not really much to tell y'all. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, but you should. I am so bad about in-feed posts. People are like, oh, you don't post on your feed. No, but I am very good at my stories. And then also I have a page that I created for the podcast that's going to be more dedicated content and honestly just a lot around what we talk about here. And if you're watching this podcast, the website is already up and going, Lord willing, praying everything goes well, but the website should be up and running. And so that's rainfromwithin.com. And basically at rainfromwithin.com, you'll be able to find all the podcast episodes. I'm going to be having them on directly on the website as well if you want to just listen to it straight off of that. But also on the blog side of things, this is for all my note takers out there. If you prefer, note takers and readers, if you prefer reading and also more details and such like that, and also if you like to take notes, I'm going to be having the written version of each episode on there as a blog post with all the points that I mentioned. So if you're just watching it, don't even worry about the note taking. I mean, obviously, if you take your notes, you take your notes. Or if you're like, you just want to remember something, it's going to be on the blog as well. And also, there's also a side there you can always shoot me an email and ask any questions. On my website, you're also going to see like a side where it says it's going to be the connect form, and on there you can shoot me a message, shoot me an email, prayer requests, praise reports, any kind of general questions. And yeah, I would love to just connect with you. If it's not on Instagram, you guys can connect with me on there. So it's gonna be so much fun. I'm really excited and expectant for what's gonna come of this. So yeah, so this is gonna be available anywhere you can watch. If you can, and if you're watching, if you're just listening to this, we are posting this, me, this is being posted to YouTube as well. So if you prefer, I can't even talk, if you prefer a video, it's going to be available on YouTube as well. So what else? What else can I tell y'all? Guys, this is just like a dream come true. So I just want to thank you if you're here and you're listening. But also I would love to know what you guys think. Like, if as far as if you have questions, if you have anything specific you want to hear about, anything specific that you're struggling with, you're battling with, etc., any kind of attacks, any kind of, to the best of my ability, prayerfully, I will talk. I can't talk about it. We can always just process together. Okay, this is just, we're just processing. But yeah, all that being said, I do want to say that I am just so grateful to be here. I'm grateful to even be doing this. I'm grateful that you're here watching this or listening to this, because guys, this is just quite literally a dream come true, and it's something that I've been thinking about for so long, and it's finally here. Also, I know that in the pilot episode, I mentioned that I was sitting on the floor of my room, and I was like, oh, I think this is going to be the vibe. Okay, I don't love that episode. I'm not going to lie. So when I did that episode, I had like set up the equipment. I just don't love the way I was talking. I set up the equipment and I just started chatting, and then I ended up loving like the way I unpacked it, because it was my true heart, but like, whatever. The point is that I was sitting there and then I watched it back and I'm like, I don't know, it's like too dark. So y'all are getting this view, and we're gonna keep playing around with the view, the placement, and all the jazz, because the problem with me, a big flaw that I tend to have, is that little obstacles will tend to hinder me from actually beginning anything. And if you know, you know. If you can relate, then you know. But basically, I just have to like plunge, like cold plunge into the water, even if I don't 100% love it at first, and we can adjust as we go. That's my first piece of advice on the Rain From Within podcast, is just do it and adjust as you go. I had someone ask me like, hey, how are you starting this podcast? Like, what did you do? I'm like, I am literally winging it and adjusting as I go. Because if not, I ain't gonna do a thing. So that, again, my first piece of advice. But okay, guys, we're gonna go ahead and get into it. So what I want to talk to you guys about today is basically why I named this episode Rain From Within. What does rain even mean? What does it mean to find your rain? Okay. In the last episode, in our pilot episode, I did mention like what it means to find your rain, like what it means, like the definition of rain. And ultimately you can go back and reference that, or you can see it on my, I keep saying our, that's so funny. You can also see it on the Instagram page that I posted, a graphic that kind of just gives a little brief synopsis of like what it is, like the biblical definition of rain. Right. And ultimately it's stepping into your power, like defining your power. So rain is power to take the throne, to take your power. And yeah, so just go back over there. But today we're going to talk about what does it mean to find your rain, right? Like, why is that something that I talk about? So a little backstory on me. My Instagram name is Lorena Bianca, and way back when, like when I first graduated high school, I actually had a blog called it was ReinaWithin.com, LaReinaWithin.com. And then it was LaReinaWithin.com, and LaReinaWithin.com was a blog that I created for beauty And then the concept was beauty from the inside out. So if you don't know this about me, I'm a licensed esthetician and I'm also a sports nutritionist. I love nutrition. I love beauty, all of it. And I also love the concept of it all making you feel good from the inside out, right? So that's really like what that blog started with, and like what my vision was. I guess I wanted to challenge myself. I love writing. I've always loved writing since I was a kid. And also I wanted to see if I can build my own website. And I did. I had the blog up. It was doing fairly well. This is when I first kind of started doing social media. And I started doing social media like Instagram and stuff before Instagram was even a social media platform. Like, I don't know if y'all remember, like the OGs will probably remember, but Instagram used to be a photo editing app, much like Visco. That's pretty much what Instagram was in its entirety. And then actually, but you could follow people just like Visco. Like you could just follow people. But then now it's become such like a thing, right? And obviously, so yeah, I got on those like on Instagram and stuff before that. I remember starting to work with like influencer and stuff like that, and like just receiving products reviews and just talking about. And honestly, I used to just give my opinion on products I loved. Like it was always something I really liked, so I just always wanted like just to keep going and keep creating and branching onto things. So I created a website. I started writing like what kind of products I liked, products I recommended, and then also just like I don't remember so much of it, but I remember getting really bad writer's block. So I got really bad writer's block for like 2 months. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm wasting money. I'm going to take the website down. So I ended up taking down the website. Years later, I decided to bring back up the concept, but a different niche. And this time I wanted to incorporate all of my passions. And I was okay. So here's a big thing about me. I'm a woman of many passions, okay? And I know there's a lot of you that can relate to that. I like a lot of different things, and so I wanted to incorporate beauty, lifestyle, and wellness into a blog and basically just write. I just wanted to write. Like I just wanted an outlet to just write. And because I'm like, there are a lot of people out there that just want to read. Maybe people that like reading, but not necessarily like books. Like where are my Wattpad people at? Do y'all remember Wattpad? I think Wattpad's still out there, but they're like stories written by people, and they're not very long sometimes. Some people do write a lot, but like there are people that just like to like a quick read. So I was like, okay, there's a good chunk of people in the world that would potentially just want to read a blog, right? So I was like, okay, cool. So I did that for a while. I didn't love it. This time I was like, when I built that one, I was like, how in the world did I build a website in like a week and a half? Like I had far too much time on my hands. And I didn't love the website, but I still launched it. I liked it enough to launch it. I did bring it back. It was at the beginning of like, I think it was last year, which was 2023. I want to say it was the beginning of last year. Yeah. And I like launched it. I had it up there, blah, blah. And then shortly after I took it down, again, money, writer's block. I wasn't feeling inspired. I just wasn't loving it. Right. So then fast forward. Okay. So it was Lorena Bianca, and then it was, no, LarenaWithin.com. And then it was ReinaWithin.com. And then so now we've transitioned over to calling it Rain from Within, right? So I have this fixation, so the common theme here is rain, royalty. I have this thing with like royalty. Fun fact, I used to also be a health and wellness coach. I used to take on clients and train people, and that business entity name was Iron by Royalty. And that was so fun, actually. That was a really fun era of my life. But yeah, so I have this thing with royalty. Yes, I refer to myself as La Reina Bianca, aka the queen. It's just a thing. Some girls call themselves a princess. I call myself a queen. That's that. Then, so now we are here. So the rain from within. And I'm just going to read to you off like what I defined finding your rain, what it is to me, and what that looks like to me. Finding your rain means discovering your true purpose and passion in life and pursuing it with determination and confidence. It's about embracing your unique talents and strengths and using them to make a positive impact in the world. It's about stepping into your power and living a life that aligns with your values and brings you fulfillment and joy. right? A couple points I put here too. Again, this is the graphic. You can find that on Instagram page. Like, what does it mean to find your reign? One, fully stepping into who God called you to be, knowing who you are, knowing the power you hold, knowing that you cannot do it alone, and knowing when to rest. So, resting and the concept of resting is something that God has really confronted me about this year. Okay. And I'm talking to all my type A personalities, all my Enneagram 3s. Shout out Enneagram 3s. I am an Enneagram 3 wing 2, if you're curious. And Enneagram 3s basically is the achiever. And so, yeah, I have a tendency of wanting to just do. But here's the thing. Okay, another big thing about me is I can tend to lean towards procrastination, right? And that looks like the way that looks is sometimes I get so excited and I want to do so many things all in one shot that I end up doing nothing because I get overwhelmed. Anybody who struggles with perhaps some level of that kind of anxiety or just overwhelm in general probably have that in common across the border, as far as like when you feel like too much is happening, you just freeze. That's kind of like how I would handle it, but that's because like I tried to do so much that, and also I tried to do so much that I did nothing. And also I had a tendency of just wanting to look so busy that I got nothing done. A book that I read that really changed that perspective for me was The Mountain Is You. I want to say it's Brianna Weiss is the author. I want to say, I hope that's right. Brianna Weiss, but the book is called The Mountain Is You. And in there, and basically that book, if you haven't heard of it, that book's pretty popular amongst personal development, but if you haven't heard of it, it's about overcoming self-sabotage. And one of the biggest forms of self-sabotage is just trying to seem busier than you are, which is almost like sick, right? Like, why would you do that to yourself? But essentially, it's like you just keep going and going and going, but you're not getting anything done, right? And it's also just like it's kind of like I like to say cop out, like a cop out. Yeah, you're just like, no, I can't because I'm busy. No, I can't because I'm busy. I'm busy, don't talk to me, and I'm definitely someone that would do that. Like, I used to tell I remember like my mom or my sister, like anyone in my house, just being like, Bianca, this and this, and I'm like, I'm busy. And like I would sit there for hours with a planner, my iPad, my computer, or whatever was in front of me, and hours long, and just be like writing, clucking away. And at the end of the day, I'm like, what did you even get done? Nothing. So resting in and of itself is something that I've learned. So yes, that book did start opening my eyes to it. And then when I decided to finally pivot, all of like personal development books are amazing, obviously, but there comes a bigger purpose, and it's what God has for you, right? So I learn what I do with that. I got what from the self-sabotage book. I highly recommend that to absolute everybody. The Mountain Is You by Brianna Weiss. Again, I really hope that's the author. But at the very least, I'm confident and I know that that is the title of the book. But when I decided to finally resurrender my heart to God, and I was like, God, it needs to be you, not me. God really showed me. God really showed me, was like, okay, well, first of all, I need you to breathe. Can I get an amen? Because listen to me, that is something that's really hard for me. Again, talking to my type A personality, Enneagram 3 people here. And I'm sure that's not the only one, but there are a lot of people out there that just do, get nothing done. And yeah. So, and also just want to get, but also it also could be like not necessarily you do not get anything done. There are people that do get a lot done, but you just do so much and you don't know when to pause, when to breathe, when to rest. And then the sad part about that is, guys, is that life will just pass you by. That's the thing. And that was like the biggest revelation that I received, was I was allowing life to just pass me by. I had someone tell me one time, they were like, my dad once told me that don't ever let your brain be where your feet are not. I hope that I said that right. Like, don't let your mind be where your feet aren't. And basically the concept is, I don't know, I'm probably saying it wrong, but basically like your head should be exactly where your feet are. I like that better. Your head should be where your feet are, And that was something I struggled with, because I always struggled with just thinking so far ahead of the game, just thinking like, okay, what's next? Like I struggled so hard. I This is one of my biggest downfalls with people was I would have someone talking to me in front of me and I quite literally would just zone out. Like I'm just sitting here like butterflies and unicorns and flies and butterflies around your head. Like I just couldn't focus. And I had to I had to practically and actively train myself to tune in to someone when they were talking. Because when I realized that this was a problem, I was like, oh my goodness, how do I fix it? So that all goes into just slow down, like just know. And then also I personally, I'm not saying this is everyone's case, personally, that all came down to a lack of identity. That all came down to me not knowing my worth, who I am, and what my purpose is. Because for me, again, I'm speaking for myself, that in that case, I'm so busy trying to like figure out the next part of what's going to happen because I'm unsure of what's going to happen because I don't know me. You know, for all I knew in that moment of, and I'm not talking about a specific moment, like any time I was talking to somebody, perhaps I was someone that person could have leaned on, or perhaps I needed to hear what that person had to say. But I was so not rooted and so lacks I had so much lack of identity that I didn't allow myself to be fully present in that conversation. So that was another thing. So all of this happened in the span of like all of this discovery that God really had to fine tune me and really work on me just happened not that long ago, guys. And that brings me back to, developing this mission that I'm on to help y'all understand that, because I feel like this is something that just goes over all of our heads and it's still an ongoing journey, and honestly the journey is never ending. Like it's like a simple, like that quote that says, if you're not growing, you're dying. And so you always want to be growing, you always want to remain teachable, you always want to be a student. But it's just something that I want to share and then to kind of just bring light to. I want to bring light to the concept of resting. I want to bring light to the concept of you can't do it alone. There's beauty in community, there's beauty in knowing who you are, there's beauty in stepping into who God has called you to be. That is what it means to find your reign, right? But I want to break these down a little bit further for you guys so you guys can get an idea, right? So the first thing I said was, number one is fully stepping into who God called you to be. So what does that look like? So for starters, for A, if you will, what are you passionate about? What revs you up? And like, I know that sounds really cliche, but like, what lights your soul? And what could you do that if it was your job wouldn't feel like a job? It would just make you happy. What is that? Like what do you identify that with? So that goes into the whole a dream is a wish your heart wakes and heart makes. There's nothing by coincidence. Something that is placed in your heart is gonna be exactly what your calling is. It's just about you unleashing it. It's just about you niching down to it. In that pilot episode, I mentioned that I joined a mentorship program called Generation Distinct, and that is exactly what Hannah Granowski's calling is. Her calling is to call out, to help you identify your calling, and specifically young adults, your calling in life, and then also how to unleash that, right? And what are the dreams you have in your heart that you tend to overlook? So sometimes we'll have a dream and we're like, dang, I would love to start a nonprofit for X, Y, and Z. And then you kind of just like, but that brush away you just did to that call, to that idea of starting that nonprofit, for example. And I feel like that's such a cliche example, but it's the first one that came to mind. That little brush away, you just brushed away the potential purpose that you had here, and like that's your calling, what excites you. And if in a perfect world, if nothing was an object, not money, not factors, not circumstances, no objects on the table, what is it that calls you? What is it that speaks to you? What is it? What does that look like for you? I want you guys to sit with that and really unpack that. The second thing is knowing who you are. What do you stand for and what are your values? that's one for me personally, guys. Like, I just wish I could go back to younger me and tell her to stand firm. Like, stand firm in who you are, girl, because it's not worth the wish wash. It's not worth, abiding to your FOMO. Like, what even is that? Like, I found myself compromising my values and my morals as when I was younger, just because I was, FOMO. Like, oh, my coworkers are doing this, or blah blah blah, and what that's knowing who you are. I didn't know who I was, and that's what I mean when I say that I lacked identity. I lacked understanding that, okay, Bianca, this is who you are, this is who you were raised to be, and then also this is who God has placed on earth, like this person, not whoever you want to be. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying, and don't mishear me, I'm not saying that you can't be who you are, but it's about tapping into who you truly are and not who you are allowing yourself to become by the outcome of the people around you. Which brings me to something I'm going to mention later, but be very wary about who you surround yourself with. That's such a big one. Another one is gaining confidence, right? Knowing who you are. Another thing about knowing who you are is gaining confidence. How do you gain confidence? Being true to yourself and keeping your word to yourself. That's something that people don't really think about. Like, people think about confidence and they think about appearance. They think about, appearance, just like the physical, the what's the word I'm looking for? The superficial, like how your hair looks, how your brows look, how your clothing look. That's all good and dandy, but really it's about you. Have you ever noticed that if you tell yourself, okay, I'm setting myself this schedule for the day, from this time to this time I'm doing this, da, 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 da. And I use this example because if you know me, you know, but I am a calendar girl. But I've also okay, for everyone that just thinks I'm a calendar girl, guys, I struggle to honor my own calendar. And I'm going to be open and honest with you guys about that, because it is a struggle. I so quickly could just click and drag, because I'm a Google Calendar girl. On the planner, nothing goes on the planner because I have a physical planner. Nothing goes on that until it's solid in Google Calendar, right? But there's something that just excites you when you are true to the schedule that you set for yourself. Like, when you're at work and you have your planner, you have your, like, let's say most, like my job, we use Google Calendar, and typically if you're in one meeting and you have another one coming up, you're like, I'm sorry, I have another meeting, and you honor that, right? You go to that meeting. If you treated yourself with that same level of diligence and level of honor, I guess you would say, you'd be surprised how that would strike a level of confidence in you. Because if you're staying true to your own word, I don't know, it just does something for you. There probably is a study on it that I have not researched, but I'm pretty sure there is. Same thing with keeping your word to yourself. Like, if you say you're gonna go to the gym X amount of times this week, or you say that you're not gonna eat any kind of refined sugars this week, and you stick to that and you just see that through and you do it. It's like when they say, like, the 75 hard challenge. Let's talk about that because everyone's pretty much doing that right now. And 75 hard challenge is a mental toughness challenge. They call it mental toughness for a reason, because it takes mental toughness to do 2 workouts a day, to no cheat meals, no alcohol, a gallon of water. I believe it's 10 pages a day, and an outdoor workout and a regular workout, both 45 minutes each, right? That's a mental toughness challenge. Like, can you challenge yourself to actually uphold all of those pieces of it, right? But if you execute that challenge well and with grace, and you just do it really well and do it with your whole self, it does something. It really like elevates how you feel about, because it's like you respect yourself. Like, you ever encounter somebody that they say they're gonna, okay, yeah, that's a big one. Like, you ever have someone in your life that just talks and talks and talks and never comes through with what they said? That is so infuriating, and it's so defeating. Like, it just feels like, I just can't trust you. That's the same thing, that right there. If you have someone in your life that's constantly making promises and they don't deliver, you end up not trusting them, right? It's the same thing with ourselves. The best way for you to trust yourself and gain confidence in yourself is being true to your own word, right? The next point under knowing who you are is knowing when to say no, but also when to say yes. So this is a big one. I had to learn this one. So I'm in school and I had a practicum last semester with one of our sisterhood, our like women's ministries pastor. Well, she does a lot of things, but I was having a one-on-one with her, and she actually opened my eyes to this. She told me, and it was something so simple, and it's not like a new concept, I've heard it before, but this was the first time I've heard it directed towards me. And she said, Bianca, every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. You have to look at that and think about what that means for you. And I was mind blown because it's true. I have this tendency, and I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a people pleaser, but I know a lot of people that are people pleasers, and that is so stressful, and because it's like you're saying yes to people and it's also hurting you somehow, right? So knowing when to say no is so important. And that is something I had to learn. And then that goes into boundaries, being okay. I want to talk about that one day, but a really good podcast I've recently heard, it was Bianca Juarez Olthoff. I hope I said her name right. Her podcast is called We're Going There, and she did a series on boundaries. So I highly recommend going and taking a listen to that. But I think she did a really great job at unpacking different levels of boundaries. But yeah, it goes into boundaries when you say no. There's a way to respectfully say no. And that's a big one. And that has a lot to do with knowing who you are, because you can't just say yes. Like, let's say, again, let's go back to you honoring your word and honoring your own schedule. If you have scheduled and calendared for yourself that you're going to do your homework today, you're going to clean today, and you're going to do, I don't know, you're going to catch up on work today if you're not in school, then, and you calendar that, and then someone's like, hey, I don't know, what's something that's not. Sometimes situations come up where, you have to be a good friend and a good person and maybe put it aside. But let's say if someone's like, hey, do you want to come with, like, can you, oh my gosh, I'm trying to give a good example. Okay, better example. Say, okay, you calendared yourself for all of those good things, all of those productive activities, and then you're like, okay, oh my gosh, a new episode of such and such show came out. I'm going to watch this. Okay? That right there, that's when you need to say no. If let's say if one of your friends is like, "Hey, this episode on Netflix got updated. Come over, let's watch it," but you still have homework to do. Being honoring to yourself and saying, "Hey, this homework is due tonight, or let's just say tomorrow night. And if I don't do it just now, tomorrow's going to be more hectic. I'm going to be more stressed out." So basically, if you say yes to going to watch this Netflix episode that you can watch later and put off your homework, what are you doing? You're saying yes to being stressed later. So knowing when to say no. Another big thing for me is being surrounded by community. Man, oh man, y'all. This is something that's very near and dear to my heart because, y'all, I didn't realize how much I needed community until I did. Okay? Until I realized. And this is something that, you don't really think about. You don't really think about, like, I mean, at least not me, especially if you're anything like me, and which is like hyper dependent, kind of just like always on go and always up to something, like you're always just doing something. You don't really think about like friends. Like, yeah, I have friends, but I'm saying like community. Like, I'm saying people that like more than just one or two friends. And I'm not, we'll dive into that in another conversation, but I'm talking about just a plethora of people that could just love on you, and also people that will uplift you. And then in the context of what we're talking about, obviously people that pray for you, people that spiritually uplift you, who's in your corner, uplifting you spiritually and praying for you, And this is something I didn't realize I needed until one day it just hit me. Like, it just really hit me that I was praying, I was praying to God. I was like, God, I want to get married. God, I want this. God, I want that. And then God showed me so plainly and so lovingly, so gently that, like, okay, say everything went perfect. You got the man. You got the ring. Now, who's in your corner for you to celebrate with? And this is a very superficial and practical example that I'm talking about, because there's a lot more deeper and spiritual reasons as to why you would need community. It's even biblical, you know? But I'm talking about just as simply put as I can put it, right? If I all went well, got the ring, got the man, whatever, whatever. Who's in my corner? Who's to celebrate? That's no fun, you know? So being surrounded by community is something that's so, yes, it's fun, but then there's also the aspect of being held accountable. Like dating community is so important because it holds you accountable. Dating community not just holds you accountable, yes, it holds you accountable, but it's also just like, it kind of takes out the pressure of dating, because you get to fully get to know someone. Amongst you get to know them in the environment of other people. How well do they people, how well do they handle people, how well do they handle your friends, etc., etc., right? So being surrounded by community, that's a big one. Another really, really big one that has to do with other people is seeking mentorship. Okay, and I want to read a verse to y'all. This is Proverbs 11:14 says, "Without wise leadership, a nation falls. There is safety in having many advisors." Okay, there is something so powerful about having a mentor. And that's another thing I came to the conclusion of just last year, where I was like, wow, I've never had a mentor. I need mentors. Like, I need mentors, plural, because I knew that I was in a place in my life, still am, I have a few mentors now. I have a lot of people that I look up to, people that I know I can go to for prayer, guidance, etc., in my corner, right? But at the time I was like, oh my goodness, I don't have anyone that I could say I could go process with, or I could say I need prayer, or I need calm. Like, you're never gonna tell someone, hey, call me out on something, but people that I know will open heartedly, very lovingly call me out on something, right? And again, I want to read that again. It's Proverbs 11:14. Without wise leadership, a nation falls. There is safety in many advisors. So, seeking word from the wise. There's another verse in the Bible that I didn't have the time to find it, but seek wise counsel. Like, the Bible says to seek wise counsel. Look for the advice of the elders. Look for someone. When I say mentors, I'm not saying you necessarily need elders that are so much older than you, but you do need people that will call you higher, you know? Number 3, I think this is 3, right? The next one I listed on the graphic was knowing the power you hold. I just want to take a pause on this one. Pause. Knowing the power you hold. 1, you're valuable. And 2, you have a purpose. Point blank, period. And I want you to remember that. And I want you to remember that even in the hardest times, even in the times where things just don't make sense, you are valuable. God loves you so, so much. He has a plan for you. I shared Jeremiah 29:11 in the last verse, in the pilot episode. You are valuable. God has a plan for you. And he has a plan for your life. You're his child, and you are called. You are called by name. Before you even got to the earth, you were called. And you have a purpose. You were sent here for a purpose. If you're alive and well and listening to this episode, you still have a purpose. You still have a reason that you are here. And I am encouraging you to tap into that. And that, I'm going to go ahead and segue into the next one that says you cannot do it alone. You cannot do it alone, because life is hard. Life is hard. And guess what, y'all? Let me tell you something. The enemy wants to isolate you. The enemy wants. Now, let me backtrack. I'm going to backtrack a little bit, because there are seasons where God himself will isolate you. And that's a whole other conversation. But if God calls you into a season of isolation, it will not feel lonely. Hear me. If God calls you into a season of isolation, you will feel fulfilled. You will not feel lonely. You might have a moment of like loneliness where you're like, God, I have no friends, blah, blah, blah. But you will feel peace ultimately. And that's, again, another conversation. If you ever want to dive into that specifically, please feel free to reach out. I will pray with you and walk with you through that process. However, now what the enemy does is separate us and then start talking negatively in our minds, in our hearts, in our ears, and start bringing shame and guilt and worry, all of that shame, guilt, and worry are not from God. And so what the enemy would do is that he will distract you. He will try to distract you and be like, well, you have no business here. And the enemy will try to tell you that, that your voice doesn't matter. The enemy will try to tell you that you have no reason, that all of these lies, when God said different. God himself, Lord, he said that you are called and greater are the plans that he has for you. I'm gonna leave it at that, because that one, that's I need you guys to understand that you are valuable and you have a purpose, and we're not meant to do life alone. Now, this part I wrote down: humble yourself enough to ask for help. And this was for me, this was for you, and this was for me again, okay? Because humbling yourself to ask for help is hard. And don't tell me it's not. Unless you've mastered that, kudos to you. God bless, okay? But it is really hard to really sit down and be like, wow, I need help. And I love people. I do know people that are very good at it. There are people that are very good at like, hey, blah, 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 I need help. Or if not, they're really good at building a team. And I literally aspire to be that kind of person, And I mean, team building is not a problem for me, but asking for genuine help because I actually need it, not because I'm trying to build a team, is what I need to work on. And that I surrender to God every single day. I even wrote that's funny. I wrote it down here. As I struggle with this to this day. This is something God has been working on in my heart. And that is so, so, so real. And I'm being open and honest and transparent with you guys with that. That is something that I too struggle with. We're not meant to do life alone, and we need to be humble enough to ask for help. You cannot do it alone, and you cannot be too prideful to not ask for the help. And then the last one, again, the one I'm so passionate about and what God has really been revealing to me, is know when to rest. God made the Sabbath day holy for a reason. And I just want to bring clarity around that, because Sabbath day doesn't necessarily have to be just Sunday. As long as you designate a day for just rest. And by rest, I mean that doesn't necessarily mean sleeping all day. I need y'all to hear me. It does not mean just sleeping all day, but it's life-giving activity. Spend time with family, get in the word, prayer, like just disconnect from your common workflow. Okay, God made the Sabbath day holy for a reason. Okay, we're not robots, and this is how you avoid burnout. Burnout is very, very real. So we're getting back to the practical sense of everything. When you burn out, signs of burnout are things like lack of energy, boredom within your workspace. Like, I've experienced burnout, and it's so miserable because it's like, oh my gosh, I just love everything. Like, I love what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going so hard so often, and I'm not stopping. I'm not pumping the brakes ever. And then I'm like, bump it. I don't want to do anything. I don't want any of it. Nope, you can keep it. That's burnout. And so in order to avoid burnout, you have to learn when to rest. You're not a robot. God perfectly designed you to sleep and want sleep and desire sleep in that little in the brain. I forgot which gland it is, but the sleep cues are there for a reason, honey. And so there's a reason why we're meant to sleep. We're not robots, okay? So again, that's how you avoid burnout. And in conclusion, we're on a mission. I'm just going to read to you what my conclusion was that I wrote down here, because I kind of like how I said this. Each of us have a purpose, and we have work to do. It's very possible to keep doing your whole life, but that can't happen if you're burnt out. You won't accomplish anything if you burn out. And the only way to avoid burnout is to stop and rest. So, I know it's easier said than done. I know that it's difficult. I get that. But ultimately, finding your reign, stepping into your power, stepping into who you are, discovering your voice, really knowing what your purpose is, all of it takes a lot of prayer and inside work, like a lot of inside work. And it's going to take time. It's a course of time. And I'm telling you that your girl, hear me, Bianca, we are still on this journey every single day, but it's something I'm so, so passionate about. And I feel like God really placed on my heart to really share and bring light to this, because it's something that I feel like is so common. Like, so commonly people are unsure about where they're going. So commonly people don't know, any of that. So I hope that I was able to kind of just shed light to just some thought process and awaken some thinking for you, turn on some light switches, and perhaps even just get the wheels turning in your brain. Like I said, all of like this written down will be available on my website, rainfromwithin.com, under the blog section. And you'll find it. It's titled the same thing as the episode. It's what does it mean to find your rain, and you'll be able to see it, so you can really sit there and use it as a journal prompt. Like, really answer the questions for yourself, and if you need to process through them, please, like I said, feel free to reach out via Instagram, email me, whatever you want. If you know me personally, just talk to me. But I really hope this episode brought some value to you, and I would love to hear your thoughts. Please leave me a message. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. More is coming. I am combining this as of now with my vlog channel. So I do plan on continuing the vlogs. The vlogs are honestly just something that makes me happy. It's just like my little creative outlet, apart from all of this now, the whole other conversation. But I just pray that this episode brought you some value, and I would love to hear your thoughts. I know I already said all this redundant, but thank you so much for tuning in to the Rain From Within podcast, and we are in it. We are here, and I thank you guys for supporting me, for loving me through this, and just I'm so excited for the way God's going to unpack this all in his name, for his glory, always. But I love you guys, and I will see you guys in the next one, or y'all hear me in the next one. I say that on YouTube, but anyways, love you guys. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Bye.